The twin suns of Zurach Prime burned high in the sky, casting long golden beams over the largest city in the galaxy. From every corner of known space, ships arrived like migrating birds, each one carrying visitors who came for a single purpose. They came for the Intergalactic Combat Games, the most famous fighting tournament ever known. For hundreds of years, the games had been the stage where the strongest of every species proved their worth. Giant screens showed highlights from past battles, fighters with 4 arms, wings, claws, tails, and armor made from living metal. The air was filled with the smell of alien spices from street vendors and the roar of excited voices. This was not just a tournament. It was a celebration of strength. Humans had never done well in these games. The galaxy saw them as clever traders, decent builders, and skilled explorers, but weak in body compared to others. Most humans were too slow, too fragile, too dependent on technology to survive in the raw fury of the arena. It had been over 50 years since a human even entered the competition, and that one had been knocked out in less than 2 minutes. So when a single human stepped out of a small transport ship and walked toward the registration hall, no one took him seriously. He was tall, but not massive. His arms were toned, but not bulky. His hair was short and brown, his eyes calm. He wore simple training clothes, black trousers and a sleeveless shirt, without armor or visible weapons. His name, written on the registration board, was Tom. Inside the registration hall, a towering insectoid clerk scanned his ID. The clerk's voice clicked in its native language before translating into common speech. "You are here for the games? Weight category open?" "Yes," Tom said in a steady voice. The clerk's antennae twitched. "You are human. You will face fighters much stronger than you. You understand the risk?" Tom only nodded. Word spread quickly. By the time Tom left the hall, small groups of aliens had gathered to watch him pass. Some laughed openly. A blue-scaled trader shouted, "Better buy a coffin now, human." A group of avian soldiers chuckled among themselves, making bets on how many seconds Tom would last in the arena. Tom ignored them. His steps were slow but steady, and his eyes seemed to study everything: the size of the doors, the height of the walls, the way the security guards moved. The games would start the next day, but the city was already alive with energy. Street performers staged mock battles in front of crowds. Merchants sold banners with pictures of the reigning champion, Grovak, a reptilian giant whose claws could crush steel. His image was everywhere, on posters, shirts, and holograms. In every bar, fans bragged about Grovak's undefeated record. He had fought over 300 matches and had never been injured. Tom found a small room in a quiet lodging hall, far from the noisy market streets. He carried no bags, only a small metal case. Inside were simple cloth wraps for his wrists, and a single strip of reinforced band that he tied around his right arm. It was not for protection. It was a memory of home. That night, the city's great arena glowed under the light of the twin moons. It was a massive ring of black stone and silver metal, with walls higher than any building on Earth. The stands could hold millions, and every seat was expected to be full. The games were broadcast to every world in the galactic network. Tomorrow, billions would watch. Tom stood in the shadow of the arena gates. He looked at the dark sky, then closed his eyes for a moment. His breathing slowed until it was steady and controlled. When he opened his eyes again, they were sharp and focused. The next morning, the first day of the games began with loud music and flashing lights. Fighters of all shapes and sizes entered the staging area. Some wore heavy armor that covered their entire bodies. Others had skin so thick it needed no protection. Some carried energy blades, others used spiked gauntlets or chain weapons. The smell of oil, sweat, and strange alien herbs filled the air. Tom walked through them without speaking. His name had been placed at the bottom of the fight list. According to the schedule, he would face a four-armed gladiator from the war moons of Karth. The alien was twice Tom's size, with skin like stone and muscles like coiled cables. It was said that this fighter could crush a boulder with his bare hands. Before the match, fighters waited in the underground prep rooms. Tom sat in a corner, his hands resting loosely on his knees. The Karthian paced nearby, slamming his fists together, his deep voice growling in his own tongue. The crowd above was already chanting his name. When the gates finally opened, the sound from the arena crashed into the prep room like a wave. The two fighters stepped out into blinding light. The crowd roared. Giant screens zoomed in on the human, Challenger, showing his calm face. The announcer's voice echoed across the arena. In this corner, representing the war moons of Karth, undefeated in 15 matches, the crusher of shields, the breaker of walls, Korvac! The crowd screamed and stomped their feet. And in this corner, from the distant world of Earth, competing in his first games, Tom! The crowd laughed and booed, some waving Grovac banners as if mocking the human's chances. The horn sounded. Korvac charged, his four fists swinging in a blur. Tom moved. His body shifted just enough to let the first punch pass his shoulder. His feet slid across the sand, turning his body so the second and third punches hit nothing but air. Korvac's fourth punch came from behind, but Tom ducked low and stepped inside the alien's reach. A quick strike from Tom's palm hit a point just below Korvac's shoulder. The giant's arm dropped, limp for a moment. The crowd gasped. Korvac roared and swung again. Tom sidestepped, his eyes locked on the alien's movements. Every time Korvac attacked, Tom moved first, as if he already knew what would happen. Then, with a sudden burst, Tom struck twice, once to the side of the knee, once to the side of the neck. Korvac fell to one knee, his breathing heavy. Tom stepped back, letting the alien struggle to stand. The announcer's voice was almost shouting. "What is this? The human is unharmed, and Korvac cannot land a single hit." In less than a minute, Korvac tried one last desperate lunge. Tom spun aside, placed a hand on the alien's chest, and pushed with perfect timing. Korvac hit the ground with a thud that shook the sand. The horn sounded again. The crowd was silent for a heartbeat, then erupted in noise. Some cheered, others shouted in disbelief. The announcer's voice boomed, "Victory! Tom of Earth!" Up, in the highest seats, a shadowed figure watched. Grovac, the reigning champion, leaned forward, his yellow eyes narrowing. For the first time in many years, he felt something he had almost forgotten. The crowd in Zurok Prime's great arena was still buzzing from the human's unexpected victory. Outside the gates, vendors shouted louder, selling drinks and food to visitors who could not stop talking about what they had seen. In every corner of the city, screens replayed the moment Tom dodged Korvac's four-armed fury and dropped him with simple, precise moves. Many called it luck. Some said Korvac had been tired, others believed the human had hidden technology in his body, but few, the ones who had watched closely, knew they had seen something more. They had seen control, timing, and a strange confidence that was rare in the games. High above the arena floor, the private viewing halls of the champions were quieter. Grovac, the undefeated reptilian warrior, sat in his seat of dark steel, watching the replay without expression. His armor was heavy and covered in battle marks, his broad shoulders rising and falling slowly. "Human," he muttered in his deep voice. "Interesting." Grovac's second in command, a scarred alien with jagged teeth, stepped closer. "He is nothing to worry about. The games will crush him before he reaches you." Grovac's yellow eyes stayed on the screen. Perhaps, or perhaps not. Tom returned to his small lodging after the fight, his steps steady as if nothing unusual had happened. He avoided the busy streets, moving through quiet alleys where the noise of the games faded into the distance. In his room, he sat on the floor, closed his eyes, and began to breathe in a slow rhythm. His mind was not on the victory. It was on the next match. The tournament schedule was released that night. Tom's second opponent was a fighter from the ocean world of Valora. The Valoran champion, named Shaal, was built like a moving wall of muscle. His skin was smooth and silver, his body shaped for power in both water and air. Shaal's record showed 20 wins in a row, most ending in under a minute. His style was simple: overwhelm the enemy with speed and strength until they could no longer stand. The next day, the arena was louder than before. Curiosity had doubled the crowd for Tom's match. Many still believed the first victory had been luck, but they wanted to see for themselves. Tom entered the prep area early. Shaal arrived moments later, his silver skin reflecting the light, his thick arms crossed over his chest. He stared at Tom without speaking, then smiled. "You move well for your kind," Shaal said in common speech, his voice deep and rolling. "But against me, there will be no space to move." Tom gave no answer. His eyes simply observed Shaal's stance, the way he placed his feet, the way his breathing rose and fell. The gates opened. The arena floor was covered with smooth black stone instead of sand. This gave Shaal an advantage. He could use the frictionless surface to slide and close distance fast. The announcer's voice filled the air. "From Valora, the silver tide of destruction, Shaal!" the crowd roared. "And from Earth, the challenger, who shocked the games, Tom!" The horn sounded. Shaal wasted no time. He dashed forward with surprising speed, his huge frame gliding over the slick floor. His fist came at Tom like a silver hammer. Tom shifted his body a few inches to the left, letting the fist pass. A second blow followed from the other arm. Tom moved again, his feet barely touching the surface as he circled. The Valoran pressed harder, swinging with both fists, trying to trap Tom against the arena wall. The crowd shouted with each near miss. From above, it looked like Tom was always half a breath ahead, always stepping out of reach at the last possible moment. Then, in a flash, Tom's hand struck Shaal's side just below the ribs. The Valoran grunted but kept moving. Another strike came to the same spot. Then another, each one precise, each one landing before Shaal could react. The blows were not enough to knock Shaal down at once. They were designed to weaken him, to slow the speed that was his greatest weapon. By the third minute, Shaal's movements had lost some of their sharpness. His breathing was louder. His swings were wider, giving Tom even more space. Tom stepped forward suddenly, closing the distance instead of retreating. He struck Shaal's leg, then his shoulder, then his chest. Each hit landed exactly where it would cause the most trouble. Shaal stumbled, tried to swing again, but Tom caught his arm, shifted his weight, and pulled. The silver-skinned giant went down, sliding across the black floor until his back hit the wall. The horn sounded. "Victory! Tom of Earth!" the announcer called. The crowd erupted again. This time, fewer voices called it luck. The pattern was too clear. The human had studied his opponent, avoided damage, and broken him down piece by piece. In the champion's hall, Grovak watched without blinking. The corners of his mouth curved in something that was not quite a smile. The next match came quickly. Tom faced a fighter from the fire worlds of Dravos, a warrior who could endure extreme heat and wield a blazing chain weapon. The arena floor was replaced with heated metal plates, the temperature rising until the air shimmered. This fight lasted longer. The Dravosian's weapon was fast and dangerous, forcing Tom to stay at the edge of its reach. Every time the chain whipped toward him, Tom moved just enough to avoid it. He waited, patient, letting the heat wear down his opponent. After 10 minutes, the Dravosian's swings slowed. Tom moved in close, his hands striking the wrist that held the weapon. The chain fell to the ground, and in 3 more moves, the fight was over. By now, the whispers had grown louder across Zurok Prime. In the markets, people debated what made the human so dangerous. In the bars, bets shifted as more aliens began to believe he could actually reach the final. Some called him the Ghost of Earth. Others said he was a master of forgotten human martial arts. The bravest said he might even have a chance against. Grovak Tom said nothing. Between matches, he spent his time in silence, studying recordings of Grovak's past fights. He noted the rhythm of his steps, the way he lifted his left foot before certain strikes, the slight pause before using his tail. He watched every detail as if his life depended on it. In truth, it would. Far above the arena, Grovak stood in the shadows of the viewing hall. His massive claws rested on the railing as he watched the human move across the arena floor in the final fight of the day. "He is coming for me," Grovak said quietly. His second-in-command laughed. "And he will fall like all the others." Grovak's eyes stayed fixed on Tom. Perhaps, or perhaps the games are about to remember what fear feels like. The streets of Zurok Prime had changed. Only 2 days ago, most people had laughed at the idea of a human competing in the games. Now, everywhere Tom walked, there were whispers. In the market, a group of traders from the crystal moons of Oven argued over a hologram replay of his last fight. One of them pointed at the slow-motion footage. "See how he moves? It is not luck. He reads the other fighter before they even attack." In a tea house near the arena gates, 2 insectoid gamblers whispered while watching Tom's profile on their data pads. "No armor, no weapons, no implants," one said. "He fights with only his body, yet he wins. How?" Children from different worlds played in the open streets, pretending to be the Ghost of Earth. They tied cloth strips around their arms and dodged imaginary punches, copying the way Tom shifted his weight and struck in quick bursts. Tom was aware of the growing attention, but he kept his mind on the matches ahead. The next rounds would be harder. Every fighter left in the tournament was among the best in the galaxy. The slightest mistake could mean defeat. That evening, Tom sat in his small room, the glow from the twin moons shining through the narrow window. His breathing was slow and steady. He closed his eyes and pictured his next opponent, a warrior from the storm world of Tarlin. This fighter, named Kryn, was known for his speed. His legs were like springs, able to leap across the arena in a blink. His strikes came from unexpected angles, and his long claws could cut through armor. The morning of the fight, the arena was full to the edge. Banners waved in the high seats, some showing Grovak's sharp-eyed face, others showing the shadowed outline of Tom. The alien announcers shouted over the roar of the crowd, speaking in dozens of languages at once. Kryn entered first. His body was lean and built for speed, his claws long and curved. He crouched low, his eyes fixed on Tom like a predator ready to pounce. Tom entered next. He moved with the same calm steps as always, his eyes steady, his arms relaxed. The crowd leaned forward, eager to see if the human could handle an opponent this fast. The horn sounded. Kryn exploded forward, crossing the space between them in less than a second. His first claw strike came from above, the second from the side. Tom twisted his body away, both attacks missing by inches. The speed was unlike anything Tom had faced so far, but his eyes stayed locked on Kryn's movements. Kryn attacked again, leaping sideways and spinning for a low strike. Tom stepped back just enough, letting the claw pass in front of him. Then, in a blur, Tom struck Kryn's leg just below the knee. The blow was quick, but precise. Kryn hissed and leapt back. The crowd shouted in surprise. Few fighters could even touch the Tarlin warrior, but the human had landed a clean hit. The fight became a dance. Kryn darted in from every angle, claws flashing, but Tom's movements always seemed to be one step ahead. Each time Kryn attacked, Tom adjusted his position, forcing the predator to miss. After 4 minutes, Tom began to strike back. A hit to the shoulder slowed Kryn's swings. Another to the ribs weakened his breathing. Then a sharp palm strike to the thigh forced Kryn to limp. The crowd's noise grew louder with every passing second. By the 8th minute, Kryn's attacks had slowed. He lunged one last time, aiming for Tom's throat. Tom caught the claw in his palm, twisted, and sent Kryn crashing to the floor. The horn sounded. Victory! Tom of Earth! The announcer cried. In the private champions hall, Grovak stood watching the replay. His claws tapped the arm of his chair in a slow, steady rhythm. He had seen hundreds of fighters in his life, but this human's precision was different. He wastes no movement, Grovak said quietly. His second-in-command frowned. Still, you are stronger. He cannot match your power. Grovak's yellow eyes narrowed. Power without timing is nothing. The victory over Kryn made the whispers in the city grow louder. Some aliens now believed the human might actually reach the final match. Gambling houses began to shift their odds, no longer placing him at the bottom. Merchants sold cloth armbands like the one Tom wore, calling them ghost bands. But attention also brought pressure. Fighters who had underestimated Tom now studied his every move, looking for weakness. Even the games' organizers began to watch more closely, wondering if his success might upset the balance of the tournament. Tom's next match came quickly. His opponent was a massive stone-skinned warrior from the gravity mines of Dran. The Drani were slow but nearly impossible to damage. Their bodies were covered in rock-like plates, and most weapons could not pierce them. When the match began, the Drani charged forward like a moving wall. Tom dodged to the side, but his strikes barely made the giant flinch. He shifted his strategy, focusing not on damaging the stone plates, but on targeting the joints between them. Every time the Drani turned or swung, Tom's strikes landed on the softer points hidden between armor. The fight was long, but the results were the same. Slowly, the Drani's movements grew stiffer until one final strike to the knee brought him down. The crowd erupted again. By now, it was clear to everyone. Tom was not winning by strength or size. He was winning by understanding his opponents better than they understood themselves. In the markets, a group of fans watched his fights on a large screen. He studies them, one said, not just in the fight. Before, he knows what they will do. At a quiet training hall outside the city, Grovak was also studying. Holograms of Tom's matches played again and again as the champion watched every step, every strike. His breathing was slow, his gaze intense. This human, Grovak said to himself. He will not fall easily. When Tom returned to his room that night, the streets outside were filled with noise. Crowds chanted his name in different languages. Some called for him to face Grovak now. Others shouted that he was the future champion. Tom closed the door, sat on the floor, and began his slow breathing again. In his mind, he was already facing the reptilian giant. He saw the heavy armor, the powerful tail, the crushing claws. He pictured the moment of attack, the flow of movement, the single opening he would need. The games were not over. The hardest fight was still ahead. The morning sky over Zurok Prime was a deep gold, the twin suns rising behind the massive shape of the great arena. Even before the gates opened, the streets were overflowing with beings from every corner of the galaxy. Banners waved in the air, some painted with the image of Grovak's fearsome reptilian face, others with the dark silhouette of Tom standing calmly. Every inn, market, and rooftop was alive with noise. The final match of the Intergalactic Combat Games was the most watched event in the galaxy, and this year it was unlike any in living memory. For the first time, a human challenger stood against the undefeated champion. Tom walked through the quiet back streets toward the arena. His path was calm, but the city around him was not. The air carried the smell of hot metal and spiced food, and the distant roar of the crowd rolled through the stone walls like thunder. As he entered the underground gates of the arena, the noise grew louder. The halls were filled with fighters, attendants and officials moving quickly. His steps were steady, his breathing slow. In a private chamber above the arena floor, Grovak prepared. His armor was made of dark-scaled plates, each one marked with scars from past battles. His long tail flexed behind him as he tightened the straps across his chest. "You have crushed hundreds," his second-in-command said. "Do not let this human distract you." Grovak gave a deep, rumbling sound that might have been a laugh. "Every fighter I have faced fought with strength or speed. This one fights with patience. He waits for mistakes. I will give him none." The arena gates opened for the spectators. Millions filled the stands. The sound was deafening, a living wall of voices chanting names and stomping feet. Giant holographic screens floated above the ring, ready to display every detail of the fight to the billions watching across the galaxy. The center of the arena was a wide circle of reinforced stone, surrounded by high walls and guarded by energy shields. The floor was bare. No traps, no obstacles. This was a pure test of skill. The announcer's voice boomed through the air, amplified by 100 speakers. "From the world of Earth, the challenger who has shocked the games with precision and skill, Tom." The gate on the left side of the arena opened. Tom walked out slowly, the sunlight catching the cloth band around his arm. His eyes scanned the arena once, then settled on the opposite gate. The crowd's noise was mixed. Some cheered wildly, others shouted in doubt. The announcer's voice rose again. "And from the world of Korath, undefeated in 312 matches, the breaker of champions, the ruler of the games, Grovak." The opposite gate opened, and the ground seemed to shake with each step Grovak took. He was enormous, his scaled armor glinting under the twin suns. His claws were long and curved, his tail heavy and powerful. When he roared, the sound rolled through the stands like a shockwave, and the crowd roared back even louder. Tom and Grovak stepped toward the center. The champion towered over the human, but Tom's eyes stayed level, calm. The referee, a tall being of light and shadow, raised both arms. "This match will continue until one fighter can no longer stand, or the horn sounds for surrender. Fighters, prepare!" The horn sounded. Grovak moved first, his steps heavy but surprisingly quick for his size. His right claw came down in a sweeping strike that could have broken stone. Tom stepped back just enough for the claw to pass in front of him. The champion's tail whipped around in the same motion, aiming for Tom's ribs. Tom bent low, the tail sweeping over his back. The crowd roared at the speed of the exchange. Grovak's power was clear, and many expected Tom to be crushed in moments. But Tom did not attack yet. He moved lightly, circling, watching every part of Grovak's body. The champion's armor shifted with each movement, and Tom's eyes took in every detail. The angle of the claws, the way Grovak planted his feet before a strike, the slight pause in his breathing after a heavy swing. Grovak struck again, this time with both claws in a cross motion. Tom turned sideways, letting the claws slice through empty air. He stepped in close, landing a quick palm strike to Grovak's side. The hit made the champion grunt but did no real damage. The crowd reacted, with a mix of cheers and gasps. Few had ever seen anyone touch Grovak so early in a fight. The champion's eyes narrowed. His tail lashed out again, but Tom had already moved. They exchanged strikes for several minutes. Grovak's blows shook the floor, each one fast enough to crush a normal fighter. Tom avoided them by the smallest margins, stepping just far enough to escape but never wasting movement. Then Grovak changed his rhythm. He feinted with his right claw, making Tom shift his weight, then swung his tail low at the legs. Tom jumped, landing on the tail for half a second before springing off it to the side. The crowd erupted at the display of agility. Grovak's mouth curved in something close to a smile. "You are better than I expected." Tom gave no reply. From the stands, the fight looked like a storm and a shadow colliding. Grovak attacked like thunder, each strike heavy and loud. Tom moved like a shadow, always just out of reach, always appearing where the champion did not expect him. But Tom knew the danger. One wrong step, one late reaction, and the fight would be over. Grovak's strength was absolute. No one in the galaxy could match it head-on. The only path to victory was timing, finding the one moment when the champion left himself open. After 10 minutes, the fight paused for a brief second. Both fighters stood still, breathing evenly, their eyes locked. The crowd's roar became a steady hum in the background, waiting for the next move. Tom's mind was clear. He had seen patterns in Grovak's attacks. The champion lifted his left foot slightly higher before using his strongest downward strike. That moment left his back open for less than a second. It was enough. Grovak's eyes studied Tom as well. He saw the human's patience, the refusal to rush, and understood that this was no ordinary opponent. The horn had not sounded yet. The fight would continue until one fell. The announcer's voice cut through the noise. "Ladies and gentlemen, across the galaxy, we are witnessing a battle for the ages." In the stands, fans of every species leaned forward, unable to look away. Some gripped their banners so tightly their knuckles turned pale. Others held their breath as the two fighters stepped forward again. The next exchange would decide everything. The arena's energy was different that day. It was not the same casual noise of earlier fights. There was tension in the air, a heavy weight that settled over the audience. Everyone knew this was the match they had been waiting for. The fight between the reigning champion Grovak and the mysterious human Tom. The stadium, built from towering black stone walls and filled with alien banners, vibrated with the roar of millions of voices. The alien commentators spoke in rapid tones, some betting on the fight to be over in under 30 seconds. Others whispered that Tom might last a minute, but no more. Tom stood in the fighter's tunnel, eyes half closed, taking slow breaths. His hands hung loosely by his sides, relaxed. He had no armor, no weapons, only the cloth band around his wrist. The faint hum of the arena's crowd reached his ears, but his mind was quiet. Every muscle in his body felt ready. He had studied Grovak's movements for days, watching every detail, the way the champion shifted weight before attacking, the rhythm in his footwork, even the way his tail twitched when he was about to strike. Across the arena, Grovak prepared in his chamber. The reptilian warrior was a mountain of muscle, his green scales covered in overlapping plates of dark armor. Sharp bone ridges ran down his back, and his yellow eyes burned with arrogance. He had destroyed every challenger in his path for over a decade. To him, this was not a fight. It was a routine hunt. Crushing the human would be another easy victory, something to amuse the crowd before his next celebration. The gates opened. Grovak stepped into the sunlight first, raising both clawed hands as the audience screamed. His name thundered through, the air echoing against the high metal walls. He walked with heavy steps that made the ground tremble. Each movement was deliberate, made to remind everyone that he was the undisputed ruler of the arena. Then Tom walked out. There were no cheers for him at first, only laughter and scattered shouts from those who thought this would be a quick humiliation. He did not look at the crowd. His eyes were fixed on Grovak. His steps were steady, his posture calm. The contrast between them could not have been greater. One was a giant clad in armor, the other a lean human in simple clothes. The referee, a tall insectoid alien, raised a long staff. The roar of the crowd faded to a low rumble. The rules of the intergalactic combat games were simple. The fight ended when one fighter was unable to continue or when they surrendered. There were no rounds, no time limits. The moment the staff dropped, the battle would begin. The staff hit the ground with a sharp clang. Grovak moved first, charging forward with a speed that seemed impossible for his size. His tail swung out in a wide arc, aiming to smash Tom before he could even react. but Tom ducked under it, his movement so smooth it seemed like he had known exactly when and where the attack would come. The crowd gasped. Grovak turned sharply, bringing his claws down like steel blades. Tom sidestepped, feeling the rush of air as the claws missed by inches. Tom countered with a quick strike to Grovak's knee joint. It was not a heavy blow, but precise, landing on a point that made Grovak's leg buckle slightly. The champion growled, more in annoyance than pain. To him, this was just an insect trying to bite. Again, Grovak attacked, each strike faster and more forceful than the last. His claws slashed, his tail whipped, his armored fists swung like hammers. Tom was always one step ahead. He did not try to overpower the champion. He flowed around the attacks, letting Grovak's own momentum work against him. Each time Tom landed a strike, it was at a weak point. Behind the elbow, at the side of the neck, on the softer underbelly between armor. Plates. The audience shifted from laughter to surprise. The fight had already lasted longer than they expected, and Tom was still untouched. The alien commentators were speaking faster now, their tones sharp with disbelief. Grovak, for the first time in years, looked frustrated. His roars grew louder, his attacks more reckless. He wanted to end it, and he wanted to end it now. Tom's breathing stayed steady. He was not just reacting, he was reading Grovak. Every movement the champion made carried small signals, tiny shifts in weight, the twitch of a muscle, the angle of his eyes. Tom saw them all. It was as if Grovak's body was telling him what was coming before it happened. Then Grovak made a mistake. In his rage, he overextended with a heavy right swing, putting his full weight into it. Tom slipped inside the arc of the strike, his feet light against the stone floor. He landed a sharp blow to Grovak's side, just under the ribs. The champion staggered half a step, more surprised than hurt. But Tom knew the effect would grow. That strike had been aimed at a nerve cluster. The leg on that side would start to slow. The crowd's energy was shifting now. Some aliens were standing, leaning over the railings, watching with wide eyes. The noise grew as more spectators realized this might not be the easy win they had expected. Grovak tried to corner Tom, slamming his tail down to block his retreat, but Tom leapt over it and rolled to safety. The human's movements were like water, flowing around every obstacle. Grovak's breathing was louder now, heavier. Each missed attack drained more of his energy. Tom did not rush. He knew he could not match Grovak's raw strength, but he did not need to. This fight was about control, about forcing the champion into mistakes. The more Grovak attacked, the more openings appeared. And Tom was ready for every one of them. The match had become more than just a fight. It was a test of perception and patience. The crowd could feel it, the tension building with every exchange. Somewhere high in the stands, alien gamblers who had bet against Tom were starting to regret their decisions. Finally, Grovak roared so loud that the sound shook the arena walls. He lowered his stance, preparing for a final, all-out charge. His tail lashed behind him like a whip, his claws spread wide. He intended to crush Tom in one overwhelming strike. The arena held its breath. The crowd's roar turned to a distant hum as Grovak lowered his heavy body and charged forward. His claws spread wide like deadly blades, and his tail whipped behind him, ready to strike. This was the moment he had waited for. The moment to finish the fight in one strike and prove why he was the champion. Tom's eyes narrowed. His body was steady, his mind sharp. He had prepared for this moment every day since arriving at the games. He saw the slight shift in Grovak's weight, the way his left foot dug into the stone just before the final strike. The champion's roar filled the arena. His tail lashed out, aiming to crush Tom's legs and keep him from moving. Grovak's claws swung down in a powerful cross strike, meant to break bones and end the fight. But Tom moved like a shadow. His steps were quick but controlled, sliding just out of reach. As Grovak's claws passed, Tom slipped inside the giant's guard. With one hand, Tom caught Grovak's right arm, stopping the deadly claw just inches from his face. His other hand pressed hard against Grovak's chest, pushing him back slightly. The giant growled, surprised by the sudden resistance. Then, in a move so fast the crowd barely saw it, Tom twisted his body and dropped low. He stepped behind Grovak's left leg and drove his shoulder into the base of the giant's spine. A sharp crack echoed through the arena. The sound was loud and clear, cutting through the silence like a hammer. Grovak's body shuddered. His tail flicked wildly, but his knees buckled. The champion's eyes widened in shock. His roar turned into a low growl of pain. He tried to move, tried to raise his claws, but his body would not obey. Tom stood tall, breathing steadily. He did not celebrate, he only watched. The crowd exploded into cheers and gasps. Some fans jumped to their feet, others covered their mouths in disbelief. The announcer's voice was almost lost in the noise as he shouted, "Unbelievable! Tom of Earth has broken the champion's spine with one strike!" Grovak's body fell forward, hitting the stone floor with a heavy thud. His massive frame was still, his eyes closed. The energy shield around the arena flickered as the referee rushed forward to check the champion's condition. Tom stepped back, his eyes never leaving Grovak. The silence returned as the referee raised his hand and then lowered it slowly. The fight was over. The crowd was on its feet, cheering for the new champion. The alien fighters who had doubted Tom's strength now looked at him with respect and awe. After the match, Tom stood in the center of the arena. His chest rose and fell with calm breaths. The cloth band around his wrist caught the light from the twin suns. For a moment the noise faded away. Grovak's second-in-command approached. His eyes filled with a mix of anger and respect. "You have defeated the greatest fighter in the galaxy." Tom nodded. "He fought with honor." The great reptilian warrior, still lying on the floor, began to stir. His eyes opened slowly, and he looked at Tom without anger. There was only respect. Grovak raised his massive claw and placed it lightly on Tom's shoulder. The gesture was clear, a passing of power and recognition. The victory of Tom changed the course of the games forever. Across the galaxy, news spread of the human who had broken the champion's spine with one strike. Stories were told in every language, from the icy moons of Verda to the desert worlds of Calyx. In the arenas of distant stars, fighters trained harder, hoping to match the skill and patience of the new champion. The games had found a new legend. Tom's journey was not just about strength or speed. It was about understanding, patience, and knowing when to strike. The arena had shown that even the mightiest could be challenged by those who prepared with care and courage. As the twin suns set over Zorak Prime, the new champion looked toward the future. He knew that more challenges would come, but he was ready. The arena had erupted when he broke the champion's spine with one strike. Now, it would. Remember his name forever. The arena held its breath. The crowd's roar turned to a distant hum as Grovak lowered his heavy body and charged forward. His claws spread wide like deadly blades, and his tail whipped behind him, ready to strike. This was the moment he had waited for. The moment to finish the fight in one strike and prove why he was the champion. Tom's eyes narrowed. His body was steady, his mind sharp. He had prepared for this moment every day since arriving at the games. He saw the slight shift in Grovak's weight, the way his left foot dug into the stone just before the final strike. The champion's roar filled the arena, his tail lashed out, aiming to crush Tom's legs and keep him from moving. Grovak's claws swung down in a powerful cross strike, meant to break bones and end the fight. But Tom moved like a shadow. His steps were quick but controlled, sliding just out of reach. As Grovak's claws passed, Tom slipped inside the giant's guard. With one hand, Tom caught Grovak's right arm, stopping the deadly claw just inches from his face. His other hand pressed hard against Grovak's chest, pushing him back slightly. The giant growled, surprised by the sudden resistance. Then, in a move so fast the crowd barely saw it, Tom twisted his body and dropped low. He stepped behind Grovax, left leg, and drove his shoulder into the base of the giant's spine. A sharp crack echoed through the arena. The sound was loud and clear, cutting through the silence like a hammer. Grovax's body shuddered. His tail flicked wildly, but his knees buckled. The champion's eyes widened in shock. His roar turned into a low growl of pain. He tried to move, tried to raise his claws, but his body would not obey. Tom stood tall, breathing steadily. He did not celebrate. He only watched. The crowd exploded into cheers and gasps. Some fans jumped to their feet, others covered their mouths in disbelief. The announcer's voice was almost lost in the noise as he shouted, "Unbelievable! Tom of Earth has broken the champion's spine with one strike!" Grovax's body fell forward, hitting the stone floor with a heavy thud. His massive frame was still, his eyes closed. The energy shield around the arena flickered as the referee rushed forward to check the champion's condition. Tom stepped back, his eyes never leaving Grovax. The silence returned as the referee raised his hand and then lowered it slowly. The fight was over. The crowd was on its feet, cheering for the new champion. The alien fighters who had doubted Tom's strength now looked at him with respect and awe. After the match, Tom stood in the center of the arena. His chest rose and fell with calm breaths. The cloth band around his wrist caught the light from the twin suns. For a moment, the noise faded away. Grovax's second-in-command approached, his eyes filled with a mix of anger and respect. "You have defeated the greatest fighter in the galaxy." Tom nodded. He fought with honor. The great reptilian warrior, still lying on the floor, began to stir. His eyes opened slowly, and he looked at Tom without anger. There was only respect. Grovax raised his massive claw and placed it lightly on Tom's shoulder. The gesture was clear, a passing of power and recognition. The victory of Tom changed the course of the games forever. Across the galaxy, news spread of the human who had broken the champion's spine with one strike. Stories were told in every language, from the icy moons of Verda to the desert worlds of Calyx. In the arenas of distant stars, fighters trained harder, hoping to match the skill and patience of the new champion. The games had found a new legend. Tom's journey was not just about strength or speed. It was about understanding, patience, and knowing when to strike. The arena had shown that even the mightiest could be challenged by those who prepared with care and courage. As the twin suns set over Zurok Prime, the new champion looked toward the future. He knew that more challenges would come, but he was ready. The arena had erupted when he broke the champion's spine with one strike. Now, it would. Remember his name forever.